Hello and happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Welcome to this week's new episode of Breakfast with Boom. I am one of your hosts, Mr. BoomStick XL. Ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news. There has been a Phil Spencer interview that has made the rounds since the early this morning. This interview comes the way of one of Japan's most famous news publications, and that is Famitsu Wave. They have been around since the 80s, ladies and gentlemen, and they sat down with Phil Spencer and he answered a bunch of questions. But the big conversational piece that we're going to have is, well, talking about hardware. And they asked some really pressing questions, and well, Phil Spencer answered those questions. And I really think well, but you know what, folks? Look, this morning while drinking my coffee, as I was getting ready to take Mrs. Boom to work and, take care of some stuff here in the house, I was listening to the One Man Dark Man podcast, which of course is my brother from another, Dirt Griggity. I talk about Dirt on a regular basis because he's one of my favorite creators, and I really appreciate what they do on WBG. And of course, that includes himself, Joey, Ray, and of course, the guy that's always on the corner, Shan. So Sean has been he's been going through it, but yeah, I love all four of them. I think that they deliver exactly the slander that's needed to keep a lot of the ponies at bay. And yes, I did use the P word. I don't normally do, but like Dirt said yesterday, I have come to learn that even if when you are a gentleman and a community first person like me, the console war does not ignore you. And some of the things that have been said about me have been, egregious, but, we don't pay these folks any mind. But during this particular show last night, which I'm going to link in in the show notes for today, his conversation inspired me to write an original topic, which we're going to get into. And that is going to be games, media, and community versus Xbox reality. And how we're going to break that down very simply is what Xbox has done in the last 8 days versus what PlayStation has done in the entire calendar year. And it is a stark difference. It's polarizing. And I do have a tweet here that was posted that me and Korkenstein were talking about. This was a last week on the 18th of October. And it was at the Turk. I'm not following him, but he did post a really insane breakdown. It's actually 7 pages long, where he confirms, and I say confirms because he has the numbers, folks, where he says, I proved that the Xbox tax is real, and didn't even use the word Xbox. And we're gonna use this particular tweet along with what Dirt had to say to spark a conversation, because I do think that there are going to be some boo birds in the chat, as they are, and they're going to push back against us and say, no, Boom, this is all made up in your mind, and I think that you're wrong. But I do think there is going to be a high 90 percentile agreement in this particular chat that there is an Xbox tax. And I know, like Paris, and he's probably listening, he's probably shaking his head, he's probably laughing because, listen, I'm never getting off this square. And I think I now have the numbers to prove it. But I just think that when you consider what Xbox has done versus what has transpired via the games media in the last 3 weeks, folks, when I break this down for you, you're going to sit back in your chair and say, Boom, you're onto something, because I'm all about that evidence-based conversation, and this sparked something in me so strong that I literally, while drinking my coffee, wrote this topic on my phone, got all the data, went to Microsoft Word, and put it into print format where it's easily digestible. And I'm going to read it verbatim, folks. And when I do, it's really going to spark a great conversation. But Korkenstein, good morning, kind sir. How are you feeling?
Morning, bud. Yeah, doing good. Just got back home from work. Got a little power wash simulator in. Now that
Nice,
it's
very
out,
nice.
and then
People love that game.
yeah, the second one's actually really. I mean, it's more of the same stuff, but like I don't care. Like, it's just so relaxing.
I love it.
It's so fun. Just like, you had a rough day, just to like go out and like kind of zen out and just play, power wash some stuff. And it's amazing. I'm in heaven.
Well, that's good because also if you are going to play a new game and you folks or you want to spend the 27 and change, you can get the Outer Worlds 2 early. Early access started today, and I've already talked about it. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I had some small annoyances that I think can be fixed with an update, which is what cost that half point. I am officially nearly 50 hours in. I have not beaten the game. I am on a particular quest right now that is very hard to do. And I don't think it's going to have a lot of people popping this particular achievement because it requires you to do work for multiple factions. But I did just get the achievement this morning for doing every one of the companion missions. And there are a total of is it five or six companions that you meet. Now you can miss some of these these companions if you don't like do your due diligence in the game. I go here, there, and everywhere. That's why I have 50 hours and I'm not ready to beat the game. In fact, I think I'm quite a bit away from beating the game at 50 hours. But hey, man, what's going on there? Best bald head in the business, Fuzzy Belvedere. How you feeling, brother?
Oh, I'm feeling great. Glad to be here with you guys. Yeah, I've been off social media a bit, just playing games and stuff, but every time I check on social media, it's like, oh, what's the new narrative? Oh, 30%? Oh, they're dead. They're dead. They're so dead. Oh, they're going to do premium hardware? Oh, they're definitely dead this time. It's like, it's so funny these days seeing how many people keep on doing the obituary for Xbox, and it's like, hey, they're dropping games while other platforms are being quiet for the most part. So we'll definitely get into that. But so glad to be here with you guys.
Well, we're happy to have you here, brother. So thank you so much. So listen, you know what? It's funny. I don't remember the show and the actor. He's in my mind. His name is right there. You ever seen the GIF where the guy walks into the room smiling because he's carrying the pizzas and the whole room's on fire? What show is that from? That is Chad, help me out over here. That's it. Community. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. Not Danny Glover.
Yeah.
His last name is Glover, but I can't remember his first name.
Yes, it's Childish Gambino,
right.
Also as well.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just that's the GIF in my mind with Xbox. So look, what I want to do is an experiment, ladies and gentlemen. And this is going to be a two-topic show. Both topics are probably going to run 45 minutes each. We are going to get into the Phil Spencer conversation on the back end of the show, so hang out for that. But I have to have this conversation because, again, Dirk Griggity had an amazing show last night in his one-man Dark Man. And you know what? Actually, before we even get into it, what I would like to do, and again, you know how I like to help others. I'm all about lifting others, even if that requires me losing on the back end. Well, that's fine. That is perfectly fine. Dirt Griggity is one of my favorite creators. He's one of my favorite community members. And what I'd like to do, and he's working, otherwise I would have invited him on the show. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop his link for his channel into the chat. And why I'm doing that specifically is because he is at 14,960 something. He's around just a pinch under 40 away from 15K. Now you're saying some people might in the chat be like, well, why do you care? Because people matter to me, man, and they always have been. And I have built this channel on some really strong beliefs, and helping others is one of them. And seeing other people succeed is a part of that. So I'm dropping his link in the chat right now, and I'm going to ask that anyone that is not already subscribed, please give this man subscribe to his channel. Let's try and get him to 15K because he made mention about Xbox content creators having less engagement, Korkenstein, in the last couple of weeks, because if you're a positive Xbox channel, it's likely that you like myself have seen a decline in views, in subs. I mean, I'll get 7, I'll lose 8, I'll get 6, I'll lose 9. It's like super weird, and I don't know, how and why this algorithm is acting the way it is. But I was telling Korkenstein, and again, this is a conversation that Dirt had a couple of weeks ago, where he said if you put into your title "Xbox is dead," you're going to see massive engagement. So that all of that in conjunction with this tweet from, once again, the Turk. He put this out on the 18th of October, and this is what we're going to use to jumpstart today's Xbox. The Xbox itself, the platform, its brand, versus games media and the games community, and of course, what the reality is. So he said in a tweet, "I proved the Xbox tax is real and didn't even use the word Xbox." So he has a chart here, right? And this all was sparked over a lie about Xbox getting out of hardware, right? Xbox being pulled off of shelves. And he says, "Yesterday was a red letter day for me on X." On this tweet that had nothing to do with Xbox, but turned into it, he had 1.5 million impressions, 4 times his normal engagement, 2 times more reposts, and 2.5 times more likes. And this is what he says. And it was over a lie. He says, "Let me explain." So he goes on to say, with the Xbox Ally reveal, the internet exploded. And this is some of the conversation that came out of it. It's not a real Xbox. It's $1,000 for a handheld. What a scam. But here's the thing. I wasn't even showing the Xbox Ally at all. And it just, this is what I think Xbox content creators are really up against. So like I told you in the beginning, I took the time to put this graph together. Now, I'm not going to show it because it's just a bunch of words, but I do have it written, and I did take the time to write up this Word document for today's show before I hand the mic over to both Fuzzy Belvedere and Korkenstein. So again, this is the last 3 weeks for Xbox. When you talk about negative news, when you talk about Xbox is dying, when you talk about they're leaving the gaming space, this is what was put into print, ladies and gentlemen. And this is just the last 3 weeks, right? So it started on a Friday and kind of exploded on the weekend, where this smoke was righteous and well-deserved. And it started with the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate price increase. Now, that is a rake step. That is it's smoke that they earned and they deserve. It's criticism from a community that has really supported the Xbox brand, and a community that was very outspoken. And I still stand on my square that I think that it was the wrong time for a price increase, and I think that damn price increase was $5 too much. They could have done it in increments to get to that $10. I didn't think they had to just rip off the Band-Aid and make you bleed again. But they did that, and that's righteous smoke, ladies and gentlemen, and it's well-earned smoke. But here is where it's not. The following weekend, you had Walmart and Target pulling Xbox off of their shelves, that on a Sunday, Xbox had to respond, and we did see an actual response from Target. And then there was a response from Walmart, which I had not confirmed was real, that was going around as well. Then the following weekend, you had Xbox is not making their next-gen consoles. Apparently, that ship has sailed. That was a really big thing. All of the bigs reported. And again, we're not trying to throw any journalists under the bus here. We're just literally just reading what has transpired, ladies and gentlemen. and everybody talked about it like it was fact. On a Sunday, Xbox had to come out and say, nope, we are doing hardware. And interestingly enough, shout out to Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer and their PR team for getting in front of this. Because if you've noticed, you had Sarah Bond doing the ABC interview regarding the Xbox Ally and Ally X release. You had her just do the other interview with that YouTuber that has nearly 2 million subscribers confirming next generation hardware, where she said the next Xbox is going to be a premium curated device. Means it's going to be money. And it's probably going to be a very high-end console hybrid PC. And the narrative there was, why is Xbox making an expensive box that's not going to sell? PlayStation 6 better, $500. See what I'm talking about? This is the start of the ridiculousness. So after that, the not making the consoles and the next Xbox being so premium that it's too expensive and PS6 better because it's going to be cheaper, even though some of these ridiculous ponies think it's going to be a $500 device when the PS5 Pro is $800 in 2025. Okay. See what I'm talking about, folks? Ridiculous. But it gets worse. Everyone that is anti-Xbox bang their drum about the Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally not being an Xbox handheld, simply because it was a partnered device. When you say partnered, you mean you put in 50% of the work. And they did. They put 50% into the work of the design. They helped ROG make this thing. ROG is the producer of it. They made the device. But you don't think they sat down with Jason Ronald and the Surface team and actually worked shoulder and shoulder to get this thing to actually be a device that we're all playing? Of course they did. But according to games media and games community, it's not an Xbox. How dare you? And then these next two things, folks, are the backbreaker for why there is Xbox tax. Now, look, I've been gaming since 1978. I've been a podcaster since November 3rd of 2017. In all of my gaming life, in all of my so-called professional podcasting that I've put on since 2017, I don't think I have ever in my life had a conversation about effing dev kit prices. But don't you know that was a major story? I saw Tom Warren. I saw a VGT. I saw a bunch of people running with this dev kit pricing. Like, in all of my gaming life, I have never had that conversation. Have you? Have you sat down with your friends' chat and said, hey, Johnny, do you believe that they raised the prices of the dev kits on the PlayStation? I mean, like, are we effing serious? But here is the nail in the coffin of this. Actual business politics running the gambit yesterday, and still a conversation about Amy Hood's, the report that Amy Hood has demanded that Xbox division have a 30% profitability. This is the most inside baseball you could ever talk about, and yet it is a running narrative conversation towards Xbox negativity. Like, are we effing kidding me with this? Are we actually serious? And yes, and one of the things I just kind of want to, let you guys and gals know that I was talking to with Everborn and Asante this morning, as we normally do. We do our normal conversation. The thing that's left out of this conversation is that 30% is not expected next week, you assholes. You know when it's due? 2030. By 2030, they want Xbox to be at 30% profitability. But that has not been in any of the stories. And I only knew that speaking to Everborn, right? So that is the false reality that I just presented to you. So now, as a lawyer, I'm going to present my case. I'm going to present what Xbox has done in the last 8 days versus what PlayStation has done in the entire calendar year of 2025. Right? So maybe I'm being a little long-winded, but this is for context, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll be quick with this one. This is the Xbox reality in the last 8 days. Why none of this, why it proves that there is Xbox tax, and why no matter what Xbox does, good, bad, or indifferent, they are never going to win with the community, or at least the anti-Xbox community, and they're never winning with games media, because games media, a lot of them are just whores. And they're going to whore themselves out there and put the most egregious lines to simply make as many clicks as they can. Now, I'm not stupid, folks. I understand it's a business, but you can also do things to be engaging that doesn't have to be Xbox is dead. Okay? But this is what Xbox, ladies and gentlemen, has done in the last 8 days. This is what should be celebrated. This is what should be held up. Well, of course, going back to last Thursday, the ROG Xbox Ally and Xbox Ally released. And it released to good scores, really good scores. It's sold out in a lot of places. And people, even though it does have a hefty price tag at $601,000, is selling, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, it's partnered. Yes, it's an OEM device, but it is an Xbox. It's a branded Xbox. It has Xbox all over the box. It has an Xbox button on the actual device. It has an originally made Xbox UI designed by Xbox. I guess if it looks like an Xbox, walks like an Xbox, it probably farts like an Xbox. So guess what, folks? It's an Xbox. You also have 3 games released in 8 days. Keeper, Ninja Gaiden 4, and The Outer Worlds 2. 3 games in 8 days. Do you know that is more, or at least equals? Because I know some of them are going to be like, well, Death Stranding was, partnered. So, yeah. Okay, MLB. Oh, you know what? I forgot about baby steps. What Xbox has been able to do in 8 days, it took PlayStation the entire calendar year. But Xbox is dead, ladies and gentlemen, right? So you want to make sure that's clear. So yesterday, Fallout Day happens. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. That Fallout Day stream was terrible. Absolutely terrible. I covered it. And you know what? I knew I had a chance of it being terrible. But it was just awful. But at the end of that, we got Todd Howard to come out. And Todd Howard has confirmed publicly at this Fallout Day event that they're working on multiple Fallout titles and that he can't wait to share. That's positive news, I think, right? And also, you have, when you consider one of the premier franchises, and maybe it's not up in your upper echelon of franchises, we got the report yesterday that Halo is being revived. This is a report that came out that Xbox wants to revive the Halo franchise, and we're getting 2 announcements today. So if you just look at what Xbox has done in the last 8 days versus the stark reality, well, you take it up as the stark reality versus the false reality, which is what I presented my case for how Xbox is dead in the front of this. It just goes to show you that the Xbox tax is in fact real. And I know that there's going to be people that are going to clip this and push back on it. Do whatever you want. But I think I presented a really good case here. Korkenstein, I want to bring you in, brother. I think that when you just look at the numbers, if we're dealing with evidence-based conversation, it's really hard to argue against the fact that there is a Xbox tax and that the anti-Xbox community, especially the games media, will continue to use Xbox for their clicks. Look at your thoughts, man.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we've all known exists. And I know, in previous ones, Paris has jumped in and talked about it. It's definitely not every media person. I know we're throwing kind of a big blanket over this. And I have respect for you. We're not going to start, you have a no names thing, and I want to respect that as well. So just for the sake of transparency, we're speaking about this in a general fashion because we're not here um to kind of cause that trolling or negativity here. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about certain publications. Like there's a certain game that's coming out that just dropped a review, and in the review there's like 3 sentences about Microsoft as a company.
Yeah, you can
And
mention them. You can mention them. You're talking about VGC. I
yes,
talked
sir.
about them yesterday. That was one of the most egregious, self-righteous, one-sided, I hate Microsoft reviews that had nothing to do with the game I've ever read in my entire life. Please, by all means, you can mention them by names. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's stuff like that with VGC. I mean, which we've known. I mean, I've always said this. This is this gen's Kotaku. VGC is this gen's Kotaku when it comes to journalistic integrity and what they're doing. And when you have people like Midler and Dring and that kind of, and even Robinson at sometimes, it's just this is the people that vote also for, remember, the TGAs.
That is correct, sir.
These are the same board. Most of the people that we've seen from Metro, that we've seen horrible clickbaits, PC Gamer, Game Rant, the Gamer. These are the people that are voting in the TGAs that consistently apply an Xbox tax.
Yes.
And I want to be honest, this is Xbox's fault. I'm going to be, they have a Halo event going on right now, and they invited all these people.
Thank you very much for saying that, sir. I literally said that privately. I will say it publicly. I will literally, and you know something, I'm going to remove the no names conversation. By all means, name the names, because you know what? I think Dirk Griggity is right. Sometimes you got to fight fire with fire. So if you want to name the names, by all means, name the names. But you know something? And look, I have no qualms. We are a 16,000 subscriber channel, which is nothing on YouTube these days. Absolutely nothing. And I am always invited by Xbox to all of these events. Always. Right? But what I will say, and I'm always going to be grateful for that. Literally, I just had a conversation with one of their PR folks, and it was awesome. Right? But I did see who was invited to this Halo event because of some, and again, I'm not going to go out of my way to be a jerk, but some of the people they invited, Korkenstein, have gone out of their way to shit on Xbox on a regular basis to the point it's like, please, on the doll, show me where Xbox touched you and we will press charges. Yeah. Please continue.
Yeah, and it's just some of the people they invited, and then people, and then you wonder why there's leaks happening where we already know the game that they're gonna announce in like 8 hours, 7 hours.
Yeah.
It's just so silly, but Xbox does it to themselves, and I know they have Assembly PR that handles a lot of their stuff, but that they do nothing to protect the Xbox brand, which is frustrating because you see people getting these codes still, and they'll turn right back around and just, like I said, shit on the Xbox brand. And guess what? Another game comes out, they get another code. And I'm not one for blacklisting in the sense that, I don't like what you said. I don't like what you said. You can't have any more codes kind of deal. That's not the case. There's valid criticism. You've had valid criticism and you've explained it in a discussion in a healthy way. Tom Warren from The Verge does the same thing. Even Paris has done it. There's and there's room for criticism against Xbox, but when your site does nothing but create FUD and narratives and clickbait mess, and it's just, that's your whole point and that's your whole identity and ideal towards Xbox, they need to be cut off. They do nothing to rep your brand in a positive way. They use your brand to generate negativity and boost their own engagement because, like we just said, there's an Xbox tax and they get a ton of clicks. We saw it with Starfield as well. As many people, this game's horrible, it's trash. They had 80 guide articles up on how to get this gun, how to build this ship.
Yes, thank you, sir.
They
Thank you.
spoke out of both sides of their mouth. It's there, and it's something that's very, very real, that's been an issue for a long time, that Xbox just has no spine when it comes to that. I get it. They don't want to. I mean, they got a lot of smoke when Bethesda, and I was happy when Bethesda was like, F you, Eurogamer, you're not getting a code. And then they did this whole tirade and cried and lied about the codes of, oh, well, they gave it to Digital Foundry, and Digital Foundry said, no, you can't share it with them. And then Digital Foundry was like, no, he didn't. It was just silly stuff like that. And from games media, there are a few. And like I said, I've called him out. Tom Warren, I think, is an amazing, he's probably the number one journalist, in my opinion, that actually does his research and isn't just straight out to the news farm to push garbage. He gets his facts right. As much people that hate Jez, he's definitely somebody that gets stuff more right than wrong.
Yeah,
he's a little
absolutely.
early to the punch, but people never remember that. But he does his research, and he definitely does. He writes with his heart, and that's what I love about Jez. Is he definitely does get a little emotional with it, but it's because he has such a huge passion for gaming that you don't see from other writers. And so sometimes his heart leads him a little astray and he gets a little bit too emotional into it. And that's why we get some of these crazy opinion articles. I wouldn't say crazy because they're valid because it's his opinion. But that's how we get some of these opinion articles where people go back and forth, where one week he's a pony and the next week he's an Xbot,
Yeah.
and people jump those lines. But yeah, there's plenty of journalists out there. I mean, the whole Xbox era crew are solid dudes that
one of my favorites, honestly.
they don't buy into the clickbait. They try and get their stuff right first, and they rather be right than, and it kind of hurts them. And most journalists, like you even said, to quote Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. And if you're not getting those initial clicks right away, you're not going to see the engagement. And that's where the Xbox tax kind of thrives. That's where Google plays a whole part. I mean, like I said, I could keep going into this with SEO and stuff like that, but negativity sells. And you even said it before, if it bleeds, it leads. And right now, the media would have you believe that Xbox is a stuck pig that's just hemorrhaging all over the place, running around. And that's not the case. We've had so many games, and we continue to get so many games that come out and they're just absolutely amazing. And PlayStation, silent. Nintendo, silent. And it's just sad that there's so much stuff Xbox is actually doing right now for the industry and for consumers. And yeah, you may not like the price increase, but look at what we just said. How many games have we gotten now that are way over that $360 a year price raise up that we just got? If they continue with that, for me, that's value for me. So I don't mind it, but I get it if it's not value for everybody. But when you have those $360 and we're getting these bangers that we're constantly getting, like the Outer Worlds 2, even though the Keeper is a $30 title and it's, a little bit more indie, it's, even though it's from Double Fine, but it has more of like a indie-ish kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
That's still a solid title. It's a beautiful narrative game. We're getting Call of Duty. We're getting, we got Call of Duty last year. We got Indiana Jones. We got Avowed. We got South of Midnight. We're getting, all these games that are coming out and just silent. It's all people can do is just crap on Xbox rather than just enjoy games, do what they're supposed to and report fair. And there are valid criticisms. Like I said, I think how they rolled out the whole price increase was horrible. I don't think they
100%.
really had a great messaging for it. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot with cloud by not making the maximum standard across all tiers. I think, for me, I think what they should have done is premium should have first party games only. And then if you want the bells and whistles, get ultimate. Now you get all the, third party, including first party, at least bare minimum stuff like that. But that's neither here nor there. But there was people that actually reported on it fairly, and then there was people that just wanted to doom and gloom everything.
Yep.
This 30%. I mean, that this is a business, and it sucks, but I've even said, and I've been saying this for the last year now, that and I've even been told things that this isn't Phil and Sarah's Xbox pretty much anymore. It's, for the most part, it's Amy Hood and Nadella. So they've got to bat. When it came to the canceling the games, there were people out, there's, like I said, I mentioned it on your show, there were people at Xbox actively fighting not to do it, and they ended up getting overruled on it. Things like that. So it's just, people want to just create these narratives, and no one wants to sit down and actually have a discussion and understand what's actually happening, and wants to have a healthy discussion to see. It's just hate, and it sucks that's what, I've definitely taken a break off of social media for a bit, as well, like Fuzzy, and I just been gaming, and I've definitely enjoyed my time a lot more than what it is. It's just, we can't keep going back to media and expect them to be biased. A lot of it's not even hate for Xbox, it's hate for Microsoft. Which sucks, because it's not even the Xbox brand, it's Microsoft, that a lot of them hate, and rightfully so. Microsoft has done some pretty, egregious things. So I get where that smoke's coming from, but you got to stop and realize, like, this, when during all this stuff, this wasn't, Microsoft, this was Xbox that's thriving and pushing gamers forward and things like that. So I just wish we had more, and this is why I'm so appreciative of channels like this, like Web Dave, with Hargeet, talking to you, Fuzzy, PTK, Mav, Pong, about Paris. We actually have a community that wants healthy discussion. And I think that's what people are, and that's what I think the media is more afraid of, is because we get the engagement that they kind of wish they had, without having to do the dooming and narratives and clickbait and all of that. We can actually build a rapport with the listeners and the community members much more than they can. And yeah, I think that's why they're such kind of like scared of content creators.
I mean, you're not wrong. Look, Xbox steps on rakes. And I think it's fair to say, Fuzzy Belvedere, that especially because you work with me twice a week, we have gone to town and given the righteous smoke because it's deserved. What we are seeing here, and what I presented before, to open the show, about this Xbox tax being to a point where lies are being committed, and journos are not only taking and running with the ball, they are flashing it right on the front screen. And I mean, a perfect example is Shinobi 602, for instance. Now, I've talked about Shinobi 602, and I follow him. I don't think he follows me, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But he was one of the originators for Xbox being pulled off of the shelves of Walmart and Target. And he put out there on Front Street a picture that was from 2023, not doing his due diligence. He did it for engagement. Now, whether you hate him, like him, or otherwise, I still follow him, and I like what he does with the community. And just the other day, interestingly enough, he put out Xbox making hardware. Oh my God. And people were like, hey, is it sourced? You know what I'm saying? And it kind of really gave it to him. And that's earned. Now, the source, yes, it was, because it was actually Sarah Bond, president of Xbox, who said this during her sit-down interview, where, of course, again, we've known this. They are doing hardware, folks. They are. We're going to get into what Phil Spencer had to say, where they, I don't know, is it quadruple down? Right now, they're up to the quadruple, or is it 5? Is it 6 times down that they have confirmed hardware? We're going to get into that. That's the Famitsu Wave interview that we're going to get into. But I kind of want to keep our attention here. I think I presented a very fair case. Yeah. I don't think anything that I said to open up the anti-Xbox conversation versus the reality. I do think it's broken down in a way that is understandable. I mean, it might be long-winded, sure, but that is how much negativity has come out in the last 3 weeks against Xbox.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because when you look at the actual, breakdown, the two that jump off the page for me that proves that that these publications are striving for the click and they don't care how they get it is when you start reporting on the dev kit price increases and Xbox division expected to make 30%. That is Corpo 101. I don't recall a conversation hearing what corporate is doing with the demands for PlayStation or Xbox in all of my years as a podcaster, nor have I ever had a conversation publicly about dev kit prices for PlayStation or Nintendo. There was a story that broke a couple of weeks ago about Nintendo not sending the dev kits out, but that was like a blip. You literally saw one story or somebody in the community talk about it, and it completely went away. But
and the spin on that was, it wasn't like it was a bad thing. Like, you have this Switch 2 come out, you would think that would be the priority. No, pick it for the Switch. That way it will work on the Switch 2 by default. No,
yeah,
we want newer games that aren't being held back by this, cell phone equivalent hardware in the Switch 1. But I'm sorry, continue.
No. And I want to hand the mic over to you because I do think that there is something to be said about the like I like to call the dreaded Xbox tax. And I'm sorry to say, even if you are someone in the chat that disagrees, I think the case I have presented proves otherwise. As a matter of fact, I would dare say what Jacob Turksland has presented, where he literally didn't even put the word Xbox in there, and he saw engagement that he's never seen before on X, proves exactly the point. But please, let's get your thoughts on the stark reality of what Xbox has done in the last 8 days versus the false reality that has been presented by games media for 3 weeks plus.
Well, one of the bright points of that whole Xbox tax chart that he was talking about was the Xbox Ally. Instead of us as gamers being excited about new pieces of hardware, I mean, I get it. If it's out of your price range, it's out of your price range. Even if it's not your platform of choice, that's fine. It's not like it kicked your puppy or peed in your Cheerios. So I don't understand if it's not your platform, why you would feel it necessary to proclaim that it's not an Xbox, even though it says Xbox on the box. Shout out to Doc Dark about the whole deal. Can the Portal play a PlayStation console game? And people were trying to talk about the not really the scope, but like not the narrative. I'm trying to think of the word, but basically, if you have to adjust the context as far as how you're looking at that device versus how you're looking at the Xbox Ally, then you're purposely going out of your way to nitpick a narrative that, if you're a gamer, shouldn't even be on your lips, kind of thing. It should be more so, hey, can this play games? Yes. It can play console games through streaming. It can play console games through cloud. It can play PC games natively. And leave it at that. And oh, by the way, they're working on emulation, so that might fix some of this back and forth that people are going through on that device as well. So that was just one of those instances where, even if it's a good thing for gaming, because having a device that's more centralized where you can play different platform titles or a mix of different games or access to different games should be something celebrated. But instead, people want to be the syntax police and say that, well, because it doesn't play console games, it's not a console, or, well, it says console or PC handheld console. They're transforming. And then somebody said it perfectly in the chat earlier. Instead of focusing on Xbox being dead, should be focused on how they're evolving. And if they're blurring the lines between console and PC, that's also something that should be celebrated, in the sense that if things are getting more expensive and you already have a PC, you can still game. If you have a laptop that can do the cloud streaming or play the PC versions of these, play anywhere games, that should be celebrated. If you're able to play on your phone, if you can't get one of these PC handhelds and you get one of those like Kishi or Backbone controller pieces to it, That should be celebrated, not, nitpicked to death. Like, oh, well, that's not gaming. Okay, it's not gaming for you, but as long as Xbox keeps on producing games and they're continuing to produce hardware, I think the argument about Xbox being dead is silly. And it feels like some, not all of the media, want Xbox out of the space. They'll say something like, oh, well, no, I don't want them to go away. But then they're focused on everything that's not really gaming community focused. Like, all right, I get it. 30% sounds like a big number in as far as profitability. And it's a little bit higher than the standard, but it's not higher than the standard for Nintendo. Nintendo is over 30% as of 2024. And they've been beating us over the head as consumers with their outdated hardware that they charge a premium price for. But where's the media talking about that? No, that's right. Nintendo is beloved. They are the ones that have been around since we've been in diapers. And now, hey, I'm a gaming journalist. I'm still playing on it. But they don't want to nitpick on something that's beloved to them. They don't want to point out, hey, I would like to play the classic games on my new hardware without having to pay for a subscription. Now, granted, the subscription is what, $20 a year, $30 a year. That's fine. I'd rather put the 20 or 30 or 50 if need be to have a native version of, Super Mario World on my Switch 2. That would make more sense to me. But you remember, people said subscriptions were bad, except for when it's Nintendo or even when it's PlayStation, when you're playing the classics that you can only play, via that subscription. There's no backwards compatibility, which I know people are like, well, you guys said you're all about back compat until this handheld came out. Well, no, we're still about it. It's just a matter of some of the back compat that we want natively on that device is still in the works. And it's more of a third party issue more so than the first party issue. And there's still ways around it. As long as you still have a console, it can do the game streaming. If you, have some of your purchase items that are now in the cloud and you have Ultimate, you can still stream them to that device. Once they get emulation, which I hate to say it, even if Xbox doesn't get it figured out themselves, somebody will be bright enough to figure it out. I mean, there's been emulation for, Nintendo games on devices like this. Heck, there's been even people emulating PlayStation 3 games on the Series S. So back compat is something that they're going to work on within legal realms, but there will be back compat available for that device. But all of that stuff aside, it just annoys me that, somebody that has a device in each one of those platform, ecosystems, I see some of the glaring issues, and I don't see anybody talking about it. And I get it. It may not be the biggest deal as far as when it comes to controllers. Like I'll never stop talking about how stupid it is, because it is stupid that you have to buy a second controller for your PlayStation 5 if you like the game more than 4 hours, because hey, you play the controller, it dies, and then you switch to the other one. That's stupid. That's the community accepting stupidness. And I'm calling it stupid because if you're the only one in the household playing that PS5, why do you get two controllers? Why do you need to have two controllers on backup? Like I have more than two controllers for my PlayStation because I like certain designs, and the same thing when it comes to my Xbox. But this device, 3 days before I have to put it back in the little charger.
Yes.
3 days of 8 hours each playing, and it's still over half battery life. Like I don't think I've put it in the charger in a week now because I'm using the steering wheel for the NASCAR and for Forza and stuff. So, but when I've been playing, was it Ball Pit or Pit Ball or whatever it's called, Keeper?
I think it's Pit X Ball or Ball X Pit, something like that. Yeah.
It's like I don't have to worry about charging that controller, and it's an internal battery. Sure, I know it's a bigger internal battery than what's in the DualSense. Everybody, is praising the haptics. Even turning it down doesn't really get me beyond 4 hours, 5 years into its lifespan. And should I really have to buy a controller because the internal battery is dying? Sure, I know I can buy internal batteries and cut up the controller and, weld or not weld, but solder some of the new battery in and stuff. But you see why having replaceable batteries is a good option. In fact, they're actually going to that because, and granted, if people had complained about the crappiness of their internal batteries sooner, maybe they would have offered this as an option sooner. But I digress. Xbox tax is a real thing. I know there are people that will disagree. I'll disagree to disagree or agree to disagree or however you want to call it. But I find it funny that no matter what, like Xbox isn't on the shelves. Oh, they pulled, retail, or they're not selling their hardware, or retailers are pulling their hardware. Oh, Xboxes are on the shelf. Oh, well, they're not selling fast enough. It's like, okay, they confirmed that they're profitable on their Game Pass because it was non-sustainable or unsustainable for, according to some communities, for the past 10 years or however long it's been around. And then they're like, okay, well, with that, well, they're not selling enough hardware, so that's why some of these devs are skipping it. Well, no, it's the prices of the dev kits that's doing it. But you have at least some journalists pointing out that there's still free ways for some of the indie devs to be able to get access to it.
If you become part of ID at Xbox, they give you 2. Now, if you need more for more development oomph, if you will, if you start getting into the double and triple A development, those you have to pay for. But if you join ID at Xbox and your game gets approved, they give you 2 kits. That is very specific information that was left out of all of these articles, but very easy to find if you did a simple Google search. So it just proves that games media is being disingenuous and they are using Xbox negativity for their click ratio. Please continue, sir.
And I was going to say, you can turn your normal retail console, the one that you could buy for $500, $600, into a dev kit.
Correct, sir. Yes, you can. Again, another point left out of the conversation. Wow.
And see, I think Xbox, and I'll agree with Corkenstein to some extent, some of the rake stepping or some of this Xbox tax is kind of brought on themselves because, and hear me out, Xbox is probably one of the most transparent companies as far as what they're doing and what's going on. Sure, there's still stuff that we don't always know, but that's the case across the industry. It's like pretty much like rocket science and secret or spy stuff with secrets and stuff in the industry. Although stuff does leak on occasion, but they're probably the most transparent. You would think, and this is just me, as if I was to be a gaming journalist, and I tried to take the same approach when I was in the auto industry when it came to evaluating or doing the retail on stuff, and where you have competing brands amongst different accessories or categories and stuff like that. If you want to be fair and balanced, and you find out that something is 30% as far as what their mark is as far as profitability, I would also report on the other platforms just for the comparison's sake, as opposed to saying, well, it's higher than the industry norm. Okay, well, are we talking about independent games? Are we talking about platform holders? Because if you were talking about platform holders, Nintendo is higher than 30%. But then nobody wants to talk about Nintendo because, well, they're not really a console company anymore. They're not the premium experience. They're a handheld. Okay, if you want to make those distinctions, but I don't see anybody talking about it. Maybe it's because Nintendo will be like, go F yourself if they start asking those questions. Or they'll send the ninja lawyers after them, and then that'll be the end of those people. But in any regard, there's not that fair and balanced reporting. Like if you're going to report on one doing something, report on how all the others handle it. That would seem fair to me, or at least seem like it's balanced or you're being objective. But it doesn't feel like any of them are being objective in that regard. I won't say any, because there are some that try their best. There are ones that will push back and say, well, no, you can get the dev kits for free if you're doing this. Or there's ones that are saying, well, they also have it where, their operating costs on the gaming covers for like the studios, or it's not tied in directly to Game Pass and things. So there are some that dive a little bit deeper and try to look behind the curtain even further, as opposed to just going with the clickbait stuff that's, out there for the Xbox tax, for people to, come to their site and they can do the ad revenue for people clicking through their pages or hopefully clicking on one of the ads kind of thing. But I don't know. It just seems like even when a story has some merit to it, as far as the 30%, let's just say, there isn't anything about what the others are doing. There isn't anything concrete showing that, okay, well, if it is above the norm, how are the norms for PlayStation? How are the norms for Nintendo? How are the norms for Steam? Like, I don't know. All I'm going to say is Xbox tax is real. I've seen it. We've all seen it. Whether you want to admit it or not, that's a whole nother story. Whether you look at the intentions of said reporters that are solely reporting on Xbox's negativity as opposed to anything that they're doing positive as far as hardware releases or game releases, so be it. But it's real as far as I'm concerned, and it'll be hard to change my mind on it.
And I wanted to add in about the disingenuous too, because you can see who it is, because those claiming the ROG is not an Xbox are still the same ones that refuse to understand what this is an Xbox actually
Thank
is.
you, sir. Yes.
It's not an Xbox hasn't been a traditional console company for the last 2 or 3 years. They've openly said this. They've pushed forward that they're a multi-entry point ecosystem. That this is an Xbox is how you're playing your Xbox in spending in their ecosystem. So whether you're on cloud, whether you're on PC, whether you're on PlayStation, that's what it means by this is an Xbox, is that you can access your titles, you can access cloud, you can access Game Pass, you can do all these kind of various things, not all of them all at the same time, because sometimes, like with the ROG, you can't do certain things natively, but you can access them with cloud gaming. Same thing with PS5. You're not going to get certain games on there, but you're still spending and actively working inside the Xbox ecosystem. And so many were like, this isn't an Xbox, it's not an Xbox. They still refuse to see that Xbox is no longer only a console company. It's not the case anymore.
They are moving differently because they have to. Again, I really think that is at the crux of the conversation. They lost, ladies and gentlemen. They lost to Xbox, lost to Nintendo, and they lost to PlayStation in the standardized console market. They lost. They know they lost. And what exactly do you folks? And I'm not talking about to the chat that's pro Xbox. I'm talking about to the games media and the disingenuous PlayStation or the pony community. What is it that you want Xbox to do? Release another standardized console so you can say they stepped on another rake and they failed? And again, this is another point. I totally forgot about this. Outside of the dev kit talk, outside of the demand of 30% by Amy Hood, the CFO, there was another conversation, and it totally slipped my mind. And that's because there was so much shit to talk about, I actually forgot. And that is the commentary from Sarah Bond regarding the premium Xbox experience that is coming for next generation. And somehow, ladies and gentlemen, some way, because it's going to be premium, you would expect it's going to come with a lot of power. And what did the anti-Xbox pony community talk about? What did the disingenuous journos talk about? PlayStation is going to be half the price. The PS6 is going to be much cheaper, but less powerful. And the narrative was spun about, well, you see, maybe we don't need power. Wait a second. Pump those effing brakes, yo. Are you serious? Like, that is power was a thing. Games, first party games was a thing. Value was a thing. And it constantly and consistently changes. But according to many, oh no, Boom, you're wearing a green tinfoil hat. There's no Xbox tax. Folks, the case has been presented. And I think the jury, which of course is you, are going to agree that there is an Xbox tax, and it's disgusting. And you know what I say? Turn off social media. Like Paris always says, it's not real. I've been playing the shit out of my Xbox and loving every second of it. In fact, I have so many games, ladies and gentlemen, that I don't even know what to do with myself. Like, was it Static Drive that just shadow dropped into Xbox, right? You have all these games just dropping into Xbox Game Pass, one after another, but yet Xbox is dying. Look, like I said, the righteous smoke for the increase in the price is where I push back, and I will never get off this square. I think it was wrong, and I'm going to continue to bang that drum. But I have said this publicly. For me, and this is putting myself on the stand here, ladies and gentlemen, it's valuable still, even at $30. But to be fair, I have not paid for full price for Game Pass in years. and I'm not going to. I'm paid up on, like, locked in on Xbox until the 7th of October of 28. I also have in my sock drawer a year worth that I picked up. And I just got $90 worth of certificates from Best Buy from all the shit that I bought. Guess what I'm doing? I'm taking that $90 and I'm going to go add 30 to it and buy another bunch of Xbox Game Pass at the regular $59.99 for the 3 months, and put it in the drawer and just sit on it. And as my it starts to expire, I'll re-up it. And I didn't pay anything for it. So who's the winner? You're looking at him. But, ladies and gentlemen, I got to catch up on Super Chats, and we're going to get into this monster-sized interview with Phil Spencer. And again, folks, a lot of quotes. This is going to be one of those open-ended conversations where the panel is just going to take whatever quote that they like, and they're going to run with it. But Phil did say that they're going to have some new announcements in the coming months, maybe even the coming years, for their Japanese partners. We got that quote. We also have, of course, what Xbox, what the Xbox Ally and the Ally X represent for the future of Xbox, and the fact that they are not releasing only OEM hardware, but their own Xbox hardware for the, 19th time. It's like Jason, dies and he comes back, and it's like Friday the 13th, part 72. It's ridiculous. They are making hardware, folks. We have it on paper to talk about again. But we have Big Mad Mo. And again, if you're noticing, YouTube went back to the @ stuff again, which is just dumb. They keep doing these changes. I don't get it. I didn't want it. I have no control over it. So if you see that there's an @ next to your name, that's not anything I did. That's stupid YouTube. Sorry. So Big Mad Mo drops, who's been a channel member for 42 months. He says Bounty Star is a pretty good game, and I just got it for $30 in a bundle. I really like the first one. Shout out to the panel. The Halo Championships is a great I guess he meant to say HCS is a great Halo gameplay. Well, I mean, listen, brother, we're going to get the Halo announcements later. I don't know how much later. I thought it was 1 p.m. Eastern. I don't think it is. So if it's later than that, I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to cover it, because it is Friday, and we will definitely see. But yes, 2 major Halo announcements are coming in the form of the Master Chief Collection. The Halo Combat Evolved, and of course, the new multiplayer that's going to be replacing Infinite for their championships moving forward. We'll see what that looks like later today. BT Maverick 707 in the chat drops a very generous $5 super chat, and he says, in my best ever born voice, LOL, isn't it weird that Xbox is having one of the best months ever in their history? The media is trying to bury them alive. Very sus. Indeed, kind sir. Again, when you shrink everything that I said, and I did talk for a minute, and you just say something like this, it gives you all the information you need to know about Xbox releasing 3 major games. And of course, yes, there are one's a tiny one, the other 2 are big AAA bombs. Both the other ones are available on every console. Somehow that gets overlooked. I just don't get it. Elemento Pio in the chat, who's been a channel member for 43 months. That is very kind of you, brother. Thank you so much for the support. He says Major Nelson back in the day even admitted that Xbox gets judged and looked at with a different set of eyes than the other brands. The heads know it. I mean, I remember that interview. Yeah, he did in fact say that they're a different pair of glasses. And, that's the truth. They do get looked at differently. J Mac in the chat drops a very generous $5 super chat. He says his mama named him Xbox. I'm going to call him Xbox. Argue with your mama. I love it. That's good stuff right there, brother. Thank you so much for the generosity. Flip Wild 1 drops a very generous $2 super chat. And he says, yet another damage controlling therapy session. Well, look, I'll say this. first of all, thank you for the $2 super chat. And I would say that you need to sit down in therapy, Flip Wild One, because you are obviously not a fan, and you spent money out of your pocket to make a comment that you really wanted me to read, and I have read it. And I would say, why aren't you playing on your PlayStation and listening to one of your pro PlayStation podcasts? Why would you waste your money on a super chat? See, again, just think about this from look in the mirror. Ask yourself this question, sir. Why would you give me money, and why would you listen to the show or hate listen to the show if you don't like it? That ultimately is the problem. But thank you for the generosity there, fella.
He has to spend money here because he can't spend money buying any games on PlayStation because they don't have any right now.
Well, that's true. That is very true. And plus, they would charge him extra money because he's a PlayStation loyalist. It's fine. It's fine. Adidas
PlayStation podcasts only talk about Xbox anyway, so
that is very true. Also, they do have their own therapy sessions. But okay, you're not wrong, gentlemen. Adidas 20 drops a very generous $2 super chat. He says, "Salute and good morning to all." Well, salute to you, kind sir. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for the generosity. Frizz 7131 dropped a very generous $2 super chat and says, "Wanted to ask you guys what's up with the Game Pass UI on console. No recently added section." Yeah, you're not wrong, brother. I am trying to find out what happened there because okay, so what I was able to do is if you go into it's weird. There used to be a section for on your UI that says Xbox new editions. It's gone. It just disappeared. And I don't know. And there's no way to bring it back. You can't add something to it. Like you can, you know how you can, fix your UI to what you want, how many squares and stuff. You can't. The way I was able to do it was by looking at, I think it's like in the store. I think if you go to the store and you click filters on the left, you could put Xbox Game Pass. It's weird how they did it. I just that's another rake step. I didn't think anybody. I thought I was crazy, but I could not find the section on my Xbox that says newly added to Game Pass where there actually used to be one. There's not one you can put in. That's a really good point, brother. If I get any information, I will. I've reached out to PR to find out what the deal is with that and whether or not that's coming back. But that is definitely a UI F up. He goes on to say, let's see. Okay, so I'll read it in whole again. He drops a very generous $10 super chat and says, "Wanted to ask you guys what's up with the Game Pass UI on console. No recently added Xbox Game Pass section. A lot of options like Ubisoft Classic takes you to no games. Here message. It was better before the hike." Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. They kind of effed up on that. So I'm going to reach out to my connection with PR and see if we can get to the bottom of it. Nino Vestic, our generous friend from Hawaii, drops a one double barrel gaming membership as well as being a channel member himself for over 2 years. That is very kind of you, brother. Thank you so much for the generosity. He says, "Thank you, Mrs. Boom and Boom, for the best community on YouTube." That's very kind of you to say. Thank you so much. Appreciate the superb panel and amazing chat. Gaming is life. Mahalo and aloha. Indeed to you as well, kind sir. And appreciate the generosity. And lastly, DDPWP drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, hey Boom, my ultimate just renewed at $20. That's odd. I saw a story where there may be Xbox considering a reversal, but that is not confirmed at all. I saw somebody talking about that. I do not have that on confirmed authority, but that might your renewal, if it just happened, we're still in October. Supposedly, the new price increase is starting November 1st. So I think that if let's say, for instance, your thing renewed on the 23rd, the new renewal on the 23rd of November will probably be the $30 one. I don't. That's again, November 1st is when it's supposed to officially be upgraded. But we'll keep you advised. We also have here CKY Halo. I know you're excited, brother. He has been a channel member for 15 months, and he says, "Happy Friday, everyone. Hugs for all." Indeed. Hugs, not punches, ladies and gentlemen. But look, gentlemen, we got to get into this Phil Spencer interview. And again, this interview comes the way of Famitsu Wave, and I am going to include it in the show notes. So if you want to click on it and read it for yourself, it does, if you use Google Convert over to English so you can read it. But there, and again, this is an open-ended conversation. I want to just throw out a big thank you to Ecstasies, who put out this tweet, and we're going to use it for conversation. There is a Jez Corden or Windows Central article also. Well, this is one of the things. Phil Spencer responds to the question about whether there'll be more Xbox Studio titles developed in Japan in the future, such as Ninja Gaiden 4 and Kojima's OD. And Phil Spencer has responded to this question by saying, "During my visit to Japan, I spoke with several partners. I believe we'll be able to announce several things eventually." So obviously, they're the same way that Ninja Gaiden 2 Black and Ninja Gaiden 4 were curated to be released. That took years in the making. And we know that because Phil and Sarah literally talked about it, where it was years of planning to get these games out and made, and that's probably what's going on currently right now. But look, I'm going to go first here to Corkenstein, because Cork, you had sent a really nice write-up about what Phil had to say regarding the ROG Xbox Ally and the Ally X, as well as their own hardware. And I do have the Windows Central Gaming article in front of me, where it goes on to say Phil Spencer has confirmed that Microsoft is in fact developing the next Xbox console, describing it as a first-party product. And they go on to ask, will Xbox build the ROG Xbox Ally cross-platinum platform vision? Look, folks, I actually don't think that Phil needed to reiterate the fact that they are making Xbox hardware, and I'm talking about Microsoft-produced hardware, but maybe he had to. And this is where I give both the president of Xbox and Sarah Bond and the CEO of Microsoft Gaming in Phil Spencer a lot of credit. They have been at the front of this since the Walmart pulling Xbox off the shelf situation. And Sarah Bond has done numerous interviews. I am going to say it is very noticeable that Sarah Bond has been put in the front of this, as she should, for a couple of reasons. One, she is the president of Xbox, and I think that she should be the one doing the talking. I've been saying this for years. Though I also believe that she will ultimately replace Phil Spencer when Phil decides to retire. Now, I have heard in the background that is not for a while, but then again, things change in life, right? He could retire at the next console launch, and that is his last console launch. We don't know, but he's still the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, and obviously he still needs to do talking. So this interview was important. But I want to read a little bit of the article, and then we'll bring Corkenstein and then Fuzzy Belvedere in on the conversation. And the article goes on to say, Phil Spencer says next generation of Xbox is first party. The Xbox Ally hints on what's next for the platform. And in the subsection, it says Microsoft Gaming's CEO confirms Microsoft is in fact building the next Xboxes and teases a cross-device future as Xbox shifts its priorities. Now, I want to read directly from the article. And it says this: it's been a few rough weeks for Xbox. After backlash over Game Pass price hikes and studio cutbacks, Phil Spencer has sat down with Famitsu to talk all things Xbox, from Halo to Kojima's OD, the next generation of console hardware as well. In a recent interview with Mashable, Xbox president Sarah Bond teased that the next Xbox would be a, quote, very premium, very high-end curated experience. Now Phil Spencer has backed that up, confirming that the Xbox isn't leaving the console business and that the new first-party Xbox console is indeed on the way, easing concerns from fans who worried if Microsoft would walk away from the hardware business altogether. Korkenstein, again, this is not a revelation simply because we all know that this is happening, regardless of the falsities from the anti-Xbox community in the ponies and also some of the publications and journals that have just become leeches to anything anti-Xbox simply because they want to gain click notoriety. Let's get your thoughts on some of the conversation because you read the article yourself. I want to get your thoughts on it. Do you think it was important to have Phil out here talking about next generation hardware and more importantly, what they're going to be doing in Japan in the future?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good article and definitely something that was needed because I'm I'm in a lot of different discords, I'm in a lot of different chats, and I see a lot of different discussions here. Um, and everybody, there's a big majority of the people that I talk to that are like, no, there are some of them are trolling, some of them aren't, some of them actually have discussion on it, to where they think that Xbox is out of the hardware game. They're like, no, they're just going to do something with the ROG Ally, and they're going to just call it an Xbox, and that's it. And it's like that's not the case here. And I think Phil's saying, they are developing. Sarah Bond has said it, they're developing. I mean, she even said it last time, that they're developing hardware, and people still refuse to listen. So I mean, now it's good that we have another executive at Xbox saying that there's going to be first party hardware. I think what they're going to do is they're going to have the hybrid. I mean, basically what he's alluding to and what I've been saying the whole entire time, it's going to be a hybrid console. It's not going to be a console in the sense that it's behind a locked ecosystem and it just sits under your TV kind of thing. And it's just console only. I think that is over with Xbox. I think what it's going to be is this hybrid with an access. And this is where he talks about, even Sarah has made reference to it numerous times, about having open PC storefronts, to where you can get your Steam, you can get your, Epic Game Store, things like that. And I think that's what it'll be, is a hybrid / PC with Magnus inside of it. And then this is, I think what they're gonna do is where they'll kind of spin off and do what they are with ROG. They'll give that chip, or not give it, but probably sell that chipset, of Magnus or whatever it is, to other people. So if Razer wants to make a console, they could use Magnus, and technically it's going to be integrated and it'll be inside the Xbox ecosystem. That then you're playing on an Xbox again. Or maybe, if Amazon or Google wanted to make another device. I think I was talking to somebody, they mentioned something about something called Nook or something like that. Maybe that might be something where they'll have it built and it's going to be integrated with the Xbox ecosystem and kind of that thing. So that's what I think. I think they're gonna open up their platform so it could be accessed anywhere that you can play games. And yeah, I we'll see what actually happens. I think they're definitely closer. I think they're saying they're prototyping, but I definitely think they're going to be releasing something next year. It's too perfect, and I think I would kind of say that it's a little bit of a ball drop if they don't release a console next year, only purely because we've talked about this and we've said it numerous times. You have Fable, you have Gears, you have Halo, you have Forza. All of these things are releasing next year, and it's kind of like, I don't know. It would seem like such a wasted opportunity. They couldn't, have this rebrand, this refresh of what this new ecosystem of what Xbox is doing and what they have been doing for the last few years, but kind of just solidify it with a brand new console release with a brand new vision of this open ecosystem. I think it'll be important. As far as price goes, yeah, they said it's going to be a premium experience. I'm anticipating, unless something happens with the economy, I'm anticipating probably another $1,000 price tag.
Probably, yeah.
But I do think they are going to have a Series S model, kind of something that might be a little bit more traditional, in that sense. The Series S works so well for them. I can't see them not doing a budget friendly model, at least, or something around that, those lines. But yeah, I think definitely they're gonna. I'm glad that it's now confirmed. Yes, it's gonna be first party. It's gonna be developed by Microsoft. They had to get ahead of this because, like I said, people were just running wild with these crazy narratives that they've given up on hardware. And it's just sad that they had to come out again and drop, say another thing again, and just nobody listens. They all wait until they can twist the words. They all wait till they can twist the words into something and be like, see, Phil's a liar because in, April 17th, 20 years ago, he said this and it's not true anymore. And it's like, well, okay, shit changes. Like things happen on the fly, especially in this rapid changing industry where you can't, where one thing's the plan. You remember, you guys are thinking they're developing stuff for 5-6 years into the future. That's what they're planning when you're doing game development. This is why Concord was such a huge failure, is because, well, one, because it was a premium title, that was already done to death in a live service or in a free to play, genre, in a live service kind of, games as a service. But they planned for that though, like 5-6 years ago, when that stuff was hot and not a lot of people were doing it. And by the time they got so far into development, it's like, well, we can't really cancel. We have to pull the trigger on this. And that's what, but that's the kind of thought process when you think about it, that when sometimes they say these things, it's because, that's what the plan is right then and there. But because of a changing ecosystem, because of a changing industry, they have to pivot, and they have to pivot quick. Look at Blockbuster. Blockbuster is a classic example. Them with Netflix. Netflix went in, hey, buy us. I think it would be a great deal. No, nobody's going to do digital. They didn't pivot fast enough, and now there's only one Blockbuster independently owned in Bend, Oregon, and that company's null and put. Netflix is making TV shows out of them, making fun of it. They only lasted one season. And yeah, they were making fun of it. But that's the thing. And so Phil getting ahead of this, I think, is definitely much, much needed. As far as them with Japan, I think it's a great step. I think, like I said, it's a shame what happened to Tango. But they are seeing a lot more success with Play Anywhere and Japanese developers. Sega has been like one of the number one people that have supported Play Anywhere with them. I think there's one more. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But yeah, it was never going to work trying to have an American company integrate into Japan. And it's not, it's not, I guess, xenophobic in a sense. Like that's not really Japan in like the more popular touristed areas, but in the rural areas of Japan, they're not very friendly of tourists and outside influence. Japan likes to keep Japan very, they like Japanese companies to integrate themselves and to build up there locally. So it was never going to work when you have this big giant American company like Microsoft trying to integrate into a games, a gaming part of Japan industry that it just wasn't going to work. And Tango, we saw it; they didn't really have anything. So I think it's better that Xbox is working with partners versus trying to create something that they would never have a foothold in anyways. So yeah, it's good. I always love when Phil talks because it's so straightforward. It's so from the heart. If you've ever, we've talked with him. Boom, we've got to talk with him in LA, and he's just such a direct person. He's he's charismatic. And you could just tell he loves gaming. So anytime Phil talks, I always like to read and see what he has to say because there's just so much knowledge there. And the fact he reaffirmed first party development is a big thing that I hope more kind of, the people run with. But we'll see. The news story is only like 5 hours. So, or the article is only like 5 hours. So we'll see where it goes.
Indeed. Again, it's fantastic points of view, but I do think you're right. It was another required conversation to have simply because they're just not the same Xbox. They understand that they have failed in console sales and they needed to pivot. And they are pivoting and they are making a premium box that is ultimately going to be a high-end PC that looks and acts like a console. And what they're going to do with OEM, and this is where the ingenious part happens, is just like the Surface, Fuzzy Belvedere, and you know about hardware. The Surface is a great piece of tech. It's also very expensive though. But are there other pieces of tech that do the same thing that come in way cheaper, like PCs from Dell or Alienware, or pick your flavor of PC manufacturer? Well, there's a good shot and there's a good chance that you're going to see Lenovo, Asus, Alienware, Dell. Somebody is going to make a cheaper Xbox, but I think Quark's onto something. I can't see Xbox only releasing one, $1,200 Xbox and say, you know what, suck it. I think that whether it be a hybrid dockable handheld or their own personal handheld, there is going to be a cheaper way to get in on the ground floor of Xbox that's not going to be OEM only. Now, I do think OEM plays a major part in this is an Xbox, and I do think that all of these devices could come in cheaper. Like, I do think there is going to be a big boy at $1,200 or even $1,500. That is the premium high-end Xbox that Sarah Bond was referring to. I don't see a problem with that. If that is not for you, okay, I'm sure there's going to be a cheaper model, just like there was with the Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X. One is $600 and one is $1,000. And they're both really good pieces of tech. Now, if you want the $1,000, there are ways for you to do it legally. And if it's too much for you, then maybe the $600, just like the Series S versus the Series X was before it. And I do think that the next generation of hardware will have a similar two SKU approach, but on the back end of that, Fuzzy, you're going to have OEM hardware, and you're going to have it from other manufacturers that could come in cheaper. And I think that is ultimately what is going to work. Again, it's Xbox just being different. I want to get your thoughts on some of the interview. And again, this is a really massive sized interview, mm-hmm. and we're specifically just talking about the OEM hardware and the fact that he reconfirmed that they're making, or at least Microsoft will be delivering hardware. I do think that Cork is onto something, because next year is the 25th anniversary of the platform. It is the 25th anniversary of Halo. It's the 20th anniversary of Gears. I think it's an opportunity to potentially release an OEM hardware while 2027 will levy their own Microsoft-made hardware. Let's get your thoughts on the interview.
Yeah, it's funny to me that Xbox has to come out almost weekly, it seems, to reconfirm that they're still in the hardware business and that they're going to continue to make consoles for this next generation. But as far as like the OEM hardware aspect, or the fact that Microsoft will be making hardware, I think that was always a given. I know there's been a lot of people that have speculated, oh, they won't make it, somebody else will make it. And I think they're still going to want to be in control of that ecosystem in the sense of existing customers or new or returning customers, more so, coming back to a device that they know that they can do updates for and have it as like a baseline for a lot of these publishers making games and things. Now, as far as what the hardware might look like, I do think there is going to be a pricier under your TV console that's also able to play PC games through Steam and other stores, or even the Xbox store for that matter. And the one thing I don't want to do is keep confirming the over the $1,000 price point. And here's the key reason why. We've seen some of the back and forth that they've said as far as with the ROG Xbox Ally being $1,000, and that initial release reports showed a lower price, and Asus were the ones that pretty much determine that higher price. I do think, even though a lot of people say subsidies are a thing of the past or cheaper consoles are a thing of the past, I would agree to some extent, but I think they will undercut because of the sheer volume of manufacturing and the discounted price that they get with that partnership with AMD. Now, the discount may not be major. We're not going to see a $500 console, and that's even for Team Blue. They're not going to see a $500 console as well, unless there's some major economic, resurgence kind of thing, which it doesn't seem like that's the case, especially for things that are not made here in the States kind of thing. I would say the two price points to look at are going to be somewhere around 600 and 800. I think 800, because I don't want to agree that it's going to be at the $1,000 price point for that premium console. When you look at like how the Xbox Ally, when they were pointing out that it would have probably been less than 1,000, we saw the reports where it was 900 initially. I think you pay a premium for a portable device, so a stationary device can come in at around 800. So the replacement or the next iteration of the Series X equivalent, I don't want to pay 800, but I can understand 800. As far as for a Series S equivalent, I think the Series S equivalent will be a mobile version of that. So it'll probably be a dockable. And a dockable at 600 that's more on par with the current, I would say Xbox Series, or not Xbox Series, but the Xbox Ally X, just in more of a not homebrew, but like Microsoft made packaging. Because even when you look at the Surface lineup, some of the Surface lineup are cheaper than their equivalent builds through Lenovo or through Acer and stuff. But once you get past the up to the 15-inch screen size, that's where it changes. Then you're talking the main premium stuff where, part for part, comparing it to the Lenovo, the Surface is usually $200 to $300 more. So there is some wiggle room, but I think a $600 price point and $800 price point are reachable, even with their 30% markup that we've heard, or not markup, but like their 30% profit margin that they need to make. I think that will be what they could come in at pricing, but with the aftermarket aspect of things, I think you could see, Asus make a slightly cheaper version that doesn't come with the dock, that's maybe at $550 or at the same 600, but it gives you a little bit more, storage space out the gate in comparison. So instead of, 1 terabyte, it's 2 terabyte or something to that effect. And I can also see something like Alienware making an equivalent Xbox under the TV console that just may have a little bit more memory. Now, that won't affect the build as far as when the games are being created for the dev kits and things. It'll just mean that, instead of like the basic Xbox console that gets, 60 frames, locked, pretty consistently, you might have a 90 frame or 120 frame option, a little bit easier to unlock on more of those graphically intense games where, the Xbox that's under your TV is coming in at 32 gigs of memory, while the other one that Alienware is making is, a 48 gigs of memory or something along those lines, kind of like what, even though I don't trust what Moore's Law said, but something that could be built to that spec. And then for that extra memory, you're going to pay that premium. So instead of the $800 that Microsoft is charging you for their box, Alienware is charging you the $1,200 for their box. And it might not come with a 2 terabyte storage. It might only come with the 1 terabyte at that price versus, the $800 Xbox being possibly 2 terabyte. But it's going to be a moving target. Prices on these things change on a regular basis depending on if tariffs are calculated or not, or if it was actually made in Japan versus Taiwan versus, Korea and things along those lines. So we'll see what pricing looks like, but I do believe in when they say premium. It's just that I don't want them to do kind of like what where PlayStation cats were like, oh yeah, I'll play a premium price for some of their games. Their exclusives are worth $80 to $100. No, let's not do that. Let's not say that $1,000 or $1,200 is fine. Let's try to nudge them to saying $800 might be fine. So that way, if it's $900, it's still well within our price point at that point, but it's not as much of a beat over the head as a $1,200 box. At that point, I would say let Alienware or let Asus or MSI make that box that's that $200 to $300 more kind of thing. But we'll see how pricing shakes out. But yeah, I think from the moment, and this is how consoles have been for forever, from the moment that we saw the series consoles, they were already, even though it was in early phases, they were already working on the next hardware. I don't think that there was going to be anything that changed that other than the series console not even reaching 10 million sales. Then at that point, then I could have seen that scrap everything, let's change course kind of thing and just be a software company. That would have been the case if that may have been something that could have come about if they didn't sell any of those consoles. And I know people are like, oh, well, they only sold 20 million. Realistically, the number is somewhere between 30 to 40 million. Stop with the 20 million. The most recent report from 4 years ago or something stupid, there's 40 million plus consoles out there. Now, of those 40 million, how many are active on a regular basis? No one knows. But then again, there's 77 million PlayStations out there, and their number one title for this year with Ghost of Yotai, did it reach 2 million in sales? And that's something that the other titles sold 10 million plus. So.
Yeah. Well, the last report for Ghost of Yotai was 1.6 million copies sold, and that was an unconfirmed number. So Sony have not been out there banging the drum of, because they, again, if Sony isn't being loud, it's because they have nothing to say. Because when they have something to say, they let you know it in spades. So you might be onto something.
Yeah, and it's always funny to me that for the proportion of consoles out there, it seems like more of the Xbox is sold, the users buy games for it, in comparison to where PlayStation's out there with 77 million, 80 million plus shipped. When it comes to a lot of their games, they're only selling 1 million or so. And I know attach rate this or attach rate that. Nintendo is the king of attach rate. But all in all, I really wish that there was more of a percentage way to figure it out. Hey, if 2 million copies of something sells on Xbox, shouldn't a PlayStation equivalent be 4 million plus, considering they're at least double the amount of sales of hardware? Just saying.
Again, the numbers are very skewed on how things are discussed, but I do think that ultimately Microsoft understood that they needed to make a change on how they were going to produce what is going to be their new way of putting out traditional hardware, where it's going to be very untraditional, where it's going to be very color outside the lines. And, there's a reason why the Xbox Anywhere or Xbox Everywhere or this is an Xbox is there's reasoning behind it. They're putting it out there. So everything that you hold in your hand that has a screen is going to be able to play your game. Now, again, I know there's been a lot of pushback about, well, it can't play all your games, Boom. I get that. And that is something that we know is happening because they're going to fix that problem through emulation. That has already been confirmed, ladies and gentlemen. So again, people, running with narratives to fit their own are why you're getting a lot of these disingenuous takes. Look, if you don't like Xbox, don't buy Xbox. If you don't like Xbox, stop talking about Xbox. As a matter of fact, I would dare say that all of these pony channels would literally have nothing to effing talk about if it wasn't for Xbox, because certainly Sony isn't ringing the alarm bell. I mean, they've had a total of their own games, MLB The Show and Ghost of Yotai. You can count Baby Steps, which to some is Game of the Year, and a 90 on something called IGN that you can't spell ignorant without. And there's also the the partnered Death Stranding 2 on the beach, which again, that's same like Ninja Gaiden. They spent some money, they invested in it, so that could be considered a first party title. But ultimately, when the biggest conversation out of ponies is how many console sales they've had, and not talking about the games that used to be the conversation. And now when you move it towards the confirmation from Sarah Bond that the next Xbox, the Microsoft produced Xbox, is going to be a high-end piece of equipment. Somehow the cheaper PS6, less powerful, is the better or the breadwinner. Make that make sense, ladies and gentlemen. It's the consistent goalpost moving that you see not only in games media but also games community. The community aspect, they are who we thought that they were. Games media, on the other hand, that's where I kind of draw a line and I say a lot of them are just disgusting, and they are chasing the click ratio, and anything anti-Xbox is probably garnering a significant amount of engagement, and ultimately they are engagement farming, and that is where the Xbox tax conversation comes in. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here on Friday morning. We hope that you enjoyed the very pointed conversation that we had to open up. And of course, on the back end of it, we talked about Phil Spencer and this new Famitsu interview. All of the links have been added to the show notes. So that's what I was doing on the back end of things. So if you did want to click and read some of these articles for yourself, including the one gentleman from Twitter, which literally proved the Xbox tax without actually, spelling out Xbox, that's in there as well. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. A big thank you to all of the super chats that came in. We got another channel member chat from Smokey, who's been a channel member for as long as the channel has been around, 55 months, brother. That is very kind of you, Smokey. He says next gen Xbox will be $1,000 USD. They are going to embrace the power narrative and sell it accordingly. No more fighting for a tie with Sony. And I actually think you're right, dude. I actually think they're just so sick of it. They're like, well, they're not going to buy the Series S because this. We're not doing a next gen, a mid-gen refresh like Sony because of that. So they're like, you know what? We're going to embrace the power. If you want premium, like you are, if you're an Apple fan and you buy a new $2,000 phone every freaking year, you'll go out and you'll spend your $1,200 on an Xbox. And you know what? There's going to be other OEM, partnered places that are going to come out with cheaper Xbox consoles that are going to say Xbox, but it's going to be the Xbox Lenovo whatever, or the Alien Xbox whatever. And there's going to be cheaper options. But I also think that Xbox is going to have a cheaper model. I don't know if it's going to be the equivalent of an S versus an X like in this generation, but it might be similar. But we will certainly see. Only time is going to tell. Korkenstein, let's sell the brand, kind sir. What do you have going on with your own Xbox channel? What are you doing with the guys for the Game Pass Gumbo podcast, as well as your own, where people can find you on the socials?
Yeah, as always, thank you, Boom, for having me on every Friday. Fuzzy as well, always awesome talking with you guys. To your chat as well, thank you guys for the awesome discussions. I've been reading all of them. You guys are great. Yeah, so Game Pass Gumbo's still on hiatus. We're waiting for the host got hacked on Discord and other places. So yeah, he's just like, you know what? I'm over the internet for a while. So he's taking a break from social media and internet and just kind of getting his head in the game again. So, mental health is important. And so I'm going to give him all the time he needs to come back. So yeah, Game Pass Gumbo's on hiatus. Yeah, Xbox Talks / Korkenstein Gaming. I'm going to still wait till we can get an actual meeting of everybody to celebrate the life of Foreman, on that podcast. And then we'll probably transition over to Korkenstein Gaming. But yes, yeah, I've just been, I don't know how you do it, Boom. Seriously, all this discussion of this negativity these last 2-3 weeks has been draining, especially for those that don't know. I'm Reddit moderator for our Xbox, and just the negativity and everything there. It's just been a mission. So I'm just absolutely exhausted on trying to do anything other than just game. But speaking of Reddit, we partnered up with Kepler again. This time not as fancy as a custom Clair Obscure 33 console, but we've known about this for a while. We just couldn't say anything about the shadow drop of Pacific Drive that dropped onto Game Pass yesterday.
Yep.
We are giving away 5 keys to the game.
Nice.
And that's going to include all previous cosmetics and all DLC, Whisper in the Woods, plus the full title. You guys could go to our Xbox on Reddit and apply to win. The contest shuts down at tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. BST, and 9 p.m. CST. So if those are one of your time zones, there they are. But yeah, go in, join the discussion. Kepler's in there, Ironwood Studios as well. They're talking with people in the chat, and it's you could have a chance to win a cool game. But thank you as always, guys.
Cool, dude. Yeah, man. Well, good. Then thanks for sharing that. And folks, get in there if you want to see Pacific Drive. My brother played it on PlayStation. He said it was excellent. And that is just shadow dropped. I called it Static Drive, but that's another game. Pacific Drive was dropped into Game Pass, ladies and gentlemen. Play that game. I'm going to download it as well. I am inundated with so many games. It's to the point where, man, I don't know what to say. All I know is that right now, my life is all about the Outer Worlds 2, and I am on a mission right now. And again, no spoilers here, so I'm not going to tell you what the mission I'm on, but it is going to be a real, very difficult thing to do in the game when you're trying to get people to meet up and agree to something. It's I love it. The gunplay jumps right off the page, and I would say I normally play these games in first person. I tried it on after like 8 hours in first person. I did the third person. I can't go back. Third person is so freaking good. If you're asking me, I know there's been some people in there. I don't want to shout them out, but yes, it's worth upgrading to the $30 to the deluxe edition so you could play 5 days early. I think it is worth it. This game is going to be in my game of the year conversation along with Avowed. So now I'm at a bit of a crossroad because Avowed was and is phenomenal. But my God, to have another open world RPG in the same year, and again, we're not even talking about Oblivion remake in there. What a year for RPGs for Xbox. Wow. And all on Game Pass, including Expedition 33, which I only have like a couple of hours in, and I'm probably not going to get to because there are just too many games. But Fuzzy Belvedere, let's tell the brand of the misses. And of course, that is Fright Night with Ferocious Fee. She's going to be doing a show this evening. Obviously, this is your month because it's Halloween. And folks, if you are someone into horror and you want to have some really fun conversation, you need to tune in to Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, tonight on YouTube. Sell the brand, brother. Where can people subscribe to the channel? But more importantly, follow you and the missus on social media.
Well, as always, love doing the show with you, Boom, as well as you, Korkenstein. Love talking about the industry and gaming in general. And despite the FUD that's out there about Xbox, I'm still having fun in the ecosystem. Still having fun on other platforms as well. But man, there is just so many games on Xbox right now. It is hard to keep up. But for those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere. You'll be able to find me on social media. Well, you may not find me on social media. You'll at least find the account because I'm usually playing games instead of arguing. Every now and then I'll retweet or make a tweet. But yeah, it's weird out there for some of those that are trying to downplay Xbox when Xbox is killing it this year. But all of that aside, no episode or no show tonight for Fright Night with Ferocious Fee. I did put the link in the chat. If you haven't already subscribed, give it a look and check it out. We're even though it's October, the missus wants to kind of kick back and just watch movies for a while. It's been a rough week as far as, I guess, with schools, or at least the school she's in Delaware. So it's going to be more so of catching up on some of our favorites, whether it's Texas Chainsaw or Friday the 13th and stuff. So we'll probably just do a watch session as opposed to having an actual episode. Although I think next Friday we will be talking about the Everett Theater again. I'm also going to try to get some of the video footage that we took while being at the theater. Some strange things happen. Nothing that will change your mind about the paranormal or anything like that possibly. But some unexplained things did occur there. So I'll try to get that video up here pretty soon. But all in all, be safe out there, everyone. Have fun, play some games. There's so many games. You could pretty much do a dart game to figure out which game you can play next, and you won't really miss on any of the options that are out there. So take care, play some games, be safe this weekend, and see you all on Monday for Xbox Lunch Break Special.
Well, yes, and I'm looking forward to that because I'm literally writing that show as we speak, and there is still a lot to get into. We should have Crispy Bomb joining us as well. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for checking out today's show. Appreciate all of the love that Mrs. Boom and I continuously get. And as you know, we were able to announce that we had surpassed 8 million views on YouTube in under 8 years, which has an average of over 1 million views per year. That is insane considering the size of the channel. And of course, that would not be possible without you fine folks subscribing, sharing, and watching the live content that goes on 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Of course, I want to say that if you're not already subscribed, ladies and gentlemen, please consider subscribing, as we are now in the hunt for 17K. And you, of course, can help us get there by simply subscribing. And of course, before you get on out of here, ladies and gentlemen, if you did in fact enjoy the conversation that we had, hit the like button, share this on the socials, and of course, a big thank you to all of the consistent super chats, the channel memberships, and of course, the gifted subs. Mrs. Boom and I do greatly appreciate all of the generosity, and we will be doing the Mrs. Boom's birthday bash second week into November, which is going to, I believe it's going to be the first is Saturday. That is when Mrs. Boom's birthday, next Saturday. The following Friday, we'll be doing another $300 giveaway, and you could win one of 10 prizes, 10 digital prizes, by simply just being in the chat. And we can't do any of that without all the generosity that comes our way. So, of course, for Corkenstein, Fuzzy Belvedere, and myself, I want to wish everyone an amazing weekend. And I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day, ladies and gentlemen, it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And it would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you, you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Breakfast with Boom.